All right, we're going to go ahead and look at decimals, which are a little bit easier than fractions. We're going to be able to place positive and negative decimals on a number line and be able to compare and order both positive and negative decimals. Okay, so let's start with, so this time we're going to start with those number lines and see if that helps us out. All right, so I need this one to be from 0 to negative 10. So I'm going to start with 1 because I like to have both positive and negative just to know where I'm at. Okay, negative 1, negative 2, and you're drawing this on yours as well, okay? It's in your packet, looks just like this page. One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? I had a little bit of room, but I tried my best to cover the whole line. All right? And then it talks about intervals. So in this case, an interval, it's just from here to here. How much space is that? Well, it's just one, not like 1 unit. So 1 unit, because it's one whole number. Okay, so I would use a number line like this. It would be really easy to graph. Where is negative 3? Okay, well, negative 3 is right here. Okay, but if I asked you for, let's say, a decimal one, you'd have to eyeball it a little bit more, right? So let's look at a little bit closer into our number line. Okay, let's look down and we're going to zoom in between negative 1 and 0. Okay, so this time I really am just going to start with 0. Okay, and I want negative 1 over here. Okay, and I really like to have just 10 in between, so 1. And I'm going to I need it in between here and here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use decimals. I'm going to call this negative 0.1. And you can put that 0.1 or you can write just 0.1. I'm going to write 0.1 because it's going to take me a long time to write all these zeros, okay? And they won't really fit on mine. So you're going to write this with me, negative 0.2, negative 0.3, negative 0.4. Those are not looking very good, so I'm just going to fix it up a little. All right, to better help myself, I am just going to put this negative 0.5 because I know that's the halfway mark. I'm going to put that in the middle to help myself out, okay? So I know over here is my negative 0.4, okay? Negative 0.3, okay? And you know that these are dots. I am trying my very best to make them look like dots. Negative 0.2 and negative 0.1, okay? Negative 0.6, negative 0.7, negative 0.8. And yes, you do have to include the decimals because there are no whole numbers between negative 1 and 0. Okay, negative 0.9. Okay, so in this case, each interval from here to here, it's worth 1/10. Okay? Each interval is worth 1/10. Okay, so this is really good if I want to graph, let's say, negative 0.8. Okay? If I want to graph that, I just come down here. Negative 0.8 is right there. I draw my point. Okay? But what if I needed like negative 0.8, and not 8, negative 0.73. Okay? I could do it. I know that it's going to be somewhere in between negative 0.7 and negative 0.8, but I'd have to kind of eyeball it. So I could zoom in a little bit more. All right? So go ahead, pause the video, see if you can fill in this number line. So if you'll notice, I went ahead and I put my halfway mark in and I filled in up to here. I have negative 74 hundredths, negative 73 hundredths, 72 hundredths, 71 hundredths, okay? And I just have to keep going, all right? I'm going to pause my video again so you don't have to see how many attempts it takes me to write it that nice. So you are filling this in. Okay, so there we go. So we have this, and this is really good for that, like negative 7.3, okay? Because I can find negative 7, I see that here, negative 74 hundredths, I'm so sorry, negative 0.73, okay? I can find it right here. It's in between these two, and I've zoomed it in, okay? So that kind of helps me know where it would be. Another great thing about this is that it kind of gives me an idea if I was looking up here, oh, hey, if I wasn't sure, it's going to be closer to the 7/10 than to the 8/10. All right? And the interval, take a guess what the interval is. Okay? It is, this time they're, well, they're not negative because it's a distance. They're 1/100ths. Okay? And they shouldn't really be 1/100ths, or they shouldn't be negative because it's measuring distance. That was my mistake. So, shouldn't be negative. Shouldn't do it. But that was for something else. So. Excuse my mistake. This was okay. This part right here was okay. Right here, it just should have been positive. Okay? So, that's just kind of like a rundown of these. The nice thing about decimals is there's always 10 spaces in between because decimals are tenths and hundredths. They're by powers of 10. All right? So let's see if we can use this to help us out. All right? Look in here. We have an inequality. So first, I could just look at it. One's negative, one's positive. I already know. This one's larger. Okay? This one, though, is a little bit trickier because they're both negative, okay? Now, I could start off with my number line, okay? And remember, this is just like a really fast one for me, okay? It's not a model, right? It's just like an example. Okay, it is a model, but not one that Miss West is going to accept. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I know between negative 20 and negative 10 is negative 18. So, okay, here's where I would guess that the 15 is. Okay, so I could go over a little bit, and I know that that negative 18 is right there. It doesn't even matter that much about the 8, okay, because they're two different negative numbers. And then the 23, well, I know it has to go past the 20, okay, and if I assume that's where the halfway mark is, it's going to be closer to the 20. And if my alligator always eats to the right, it's going to eat this, okay? Remember, this is closer to becoming positive. I would like you to pause the video and try ordering them from least to greatest, all right? If you need to use a number line, go for it. Draw yourself a number line. If you feel like you got it, go for it. If I was doing this, the first thing I would do is I notice that this is positive. So I want you to put a square around it. I'm not going to draw it because I want to see who's actually listening to the videos, okay? So put a square around that, and I'm going to write it over here, just so that I know it's out of the way and I don't have to worry about it. Okay? Then I'm looking, I see a negative 7 and negative 5. Now, sometimes I make mistakes with my negatives, so I'm just going to check it out on a number line. But I don't really care about their decimals so much just because I can look at their whole numbers right now. Okay, there's where, negative 5 is a little bit over here because of the 0.9. And then negative 7 is going to be a little farther over here because it's closer to being negative 10. So put a heart around that negative 7.1. Put a heart around that negative 7.1. Then I would like a triangle around this negative 5.9 for the third one because it's the only one left. I have to put it somewhere. It's not the biggest, it's not the smallest. Right? And this last one, pause the video if you haven't already, try it out. So I'm checking on it, I see two negative numbers. I know that my negative 7 before was right about here, all right? And I know that my negative 2.4 is going to be closer to 0, closer to about here. That's where about negative 2 would be. Well, negative 2 is the larger. So negative 7.6. And put a circle around that negative 7.6. A circle. Okay? Negative 2.4. Because it's still negative. I've got to get rid of all the negatives first. Okay? And then I just have a positive. The positive is always the greatest. Okay? That completes our notes for today. We will practice in our next class period on the rest of the notes on this page. All right? Have a great night.